change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI Podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
All right, we're back for another episode of the Fundraising AI Podcast. Scott Rosenkrantz is with me, and we're here for a new year.
Yeah,
2026.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
You're up 25?
Yeah, it was good. I was thinking earlier that it used to be so hard when the year turned to remember, because every time I'd go and write a check, it'd be like, oh, shoot, I'm writing the wrong year. But I can't even remember the last time I wrote a check.
Yeah.
So what's the chance I'm going to remember what year it is ever?
That's a good point. Yeah. Except for the glasses that you have to wear on New Year's Eve, like the obligatory glasses that tell you what year it is. You're probably never going to think about it again for another 364 days.
Of course, everybody has those.
Yeah.
You just wear them around. You wear them all day?
All day.
When you go out? Yeah. Got Starbucks.
I have the auto tint ones, so that way when it's sunny out, they tint. Otherwise, they're my reading glasses.
Nice. Yeah, good end of 2025. I took some time, played with the chickens, worked in the forest. It was unseasonably warm in Middle Tennessee, like I think one of the warmest winters, quote unquote. I think it was warmer here than California. So my family in California it was raining and cold, and here I was wearing a t-shirt and spent a lot of time outside. So that was really nice just to get some balance, and got to the point, I took some time off where I was like excited to actually work on some things. I drafted a bunch of articles, like starts in just kind of like outlines for articles that I'd just been running around my head. And I find that I never really get that. I don't get that inspiration unless I've kind of stepped away. So it was a perfect amount of time to be inspired. And now I've got, I don't know, about 12 or so articles that I'll be writing in the next couple months. So that'll be good.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, just took some downtime. I mean, the end of the year, my role is transitioning into the new year. And so I just kind of took some time to just separate myself and prepare for this transition. I'm going to have a lot more available time, less in meetings, more like on the road, right? But more time day to day. So I was just kind of level setting, right? Just taking time to myself, trying to get away from technology, spend a lot of time with immediate family, my siblings. We got together for the holidays for the first time in 13 years. So it was cool to see everybody.
Good.
But I also got prepared for 2026 and really trying to make this year intentional is my word for the year.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually a really good word for the year.
Yeah.
Mine is gratitude.
That's a good one.
I'm just grateful for all the things in our community and all that. So we'll both be hanging on to that. Yeah. As we've been thinking about this year, I think this is a perfect time, as you and I were kind of preparing for this, thinking ahead, looking back. That's what years do. I mean, the turn of the year is always helpful because it lets you reflect on, what did I think I was going to do? What did I actually do? What do I want to do differently? And it gives it to us in a sizable chunk. So it's not like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do I want to become? But in more very tactical terms, it lets you identify that. So I've been doing a lot of goal planning. I think most people on this podcast have been doing goal planning. And it's made me think a lot about how we define success. And so I think that's kind of the main theme of this podcast is just how do we define success in a world that is changing rapidly, in a world that there's not a lot of baseline and a historical reference for what success looks like. And I think it's just a really interesting topic because I wrestled with this the other day with my son. So, Toby obviously used to work for you, who is data scientist. He's a brilliant coder. He's been using Cursor to like vibe code lots of things in his job at Virtuous. And so much so that he like keeps on running out of tokens. Like he'd get like a whole refresh of like 1 million tokens and he'd blow through them and like in like a couple days, like just like vibe coding a ton. And we were driving the other day and I was just like, well, so how do you know if you're successful? Because at the end of the day, you're tasked with doing a project and the project is like to achieve this thing. And you're using Cursor or whatever, Firebase or whatever you're going to use to like vibe code this thing and get it done like better and faster, but then you get more work piled on you because you did it faster. And I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of how we've defined success in the past is going to have to be redesigned for the future. Is he being compared to other people that are using equal amounts of cursor? Or is cursor optional and only some people are using it and other people are not? And some people are doing old school, just manually coding.
Yeah.
And so there was an X tweet. What do you even call them anymore? Because they're not tweets, right? Thread?
Maybe thread.
Thread.
It'll
whatever.
come up with some other weird name soon, I'm sure.
There was a tweet by David Holt, who's the founder of Midjourney. Midjourney, for those that don't know, is like, I think probably the original like Dolly.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Image generation tool.
Yeah. Image generation tool was like where you get like 6 fingers and all this stuff. And it was like pretty raw, but he was the founder of it. And he wrote this thing that I sent over to you. And he said, the quote is, "I've done more personal coding projects over Christmas break than I've done in the last 10 years. It's crazy. I can see the limitations, but I know nothing is going to be the same anymore." And I think that just speaks so much to how I was thinking about, okay, success in the past versus success in the future or success in the present. How are we even evaluating if that's the right amount? Like, what is the right amount of productivity for any person? Because we don't have a historical basis for what a person equipped with these tools should be able to do.
Yeah, it's not going to be based on time spent on a project. It's going to be based on the output. But to your point, output is limitless, right? And if he's a data scientist kind of / developer, and he's trying to evaluate his success compared to what it would have been prior. But now anybody can be developers, right? And so like the opportunities for success are limitless in terms of fields and reach and breadth. So like, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to look at the output because to your point, like you have more time to write things and you have more tools to write things quicker. Does that mean that you need to push out more things quicker?
Right. Or do I feel guilty for not being as productive? So this is something I wrestle with a lot, where it's like, yes, I have more time to think, more time to write. I used to have to write, this is just an example, right? But I used to have to write an article on a weekend because my job day to day was just like Zoom, all that thing. And by the way, have you ever been on a Zoom call? This happened to me today, and I won't say who I was on with. Have you ever been on a Zoom call live when you looked for the fast forward button, like the 1.25? Like, have you? This is like a legitimate question.
Did you try to do it or did someone try to do it to you?
No, I legitimately today, I was on a call and I went down to the bottom of the frame and I'm like, where's the speed up button? It's so embarrassing because I'm just like, this is just going too slow for me.
I haven't, but that time is probably coming.
I feel a little bit isolated right now. I don't know. I've gotten so used to watching video and podcasts and things that like 1.25 is usually my mental brain speed, but like even 1.5, depending if it's a slow talker and this person happened to be a slow talker, I'm like, where's the button? And it literally took me a couple of seconds to realize like, oh wait, this is actually live. And I'm supposed to be engaging. I'm like, just speak quickly.
You didn't ask that person where the button is to increase the speed.
Right. Do you know where that button is? That's next level. Okay. So going back to this idea of like what success looks like, there are jobs that are very, I don't know, measurable from a perspective. Like we think about in the nonprofit world, a fundraiser. A fundraiser is largely measured based on how much money they bring in, although we would argue that they should be measured based on how many relationships they retain or even retain and grow. But nevertheless, pretty concrete. So like you can screw around all year basically, and you pull a Hail Mary at the end of the year. And I always had a couple of fundraisers that were able to do that, and it just pissed me off, but they did. And they did regularly, like every year they would be able to do that. And then others that would wake up and be self-motivated and just grind it out all year and make their number and all that. But not a lot of jobs are like that. And so like for me, if I'm measured based on like, well, how much pipeline do I create or how much like thought leadership can I do? I can do exponentially more, but am I measured based on exponentially more? Or am I still measured based on what I did last year? Because last year was a fraction of, or was a multiple of what I did the year before and multiple of the year before that. So we've been on this path for 3 years where we've been growing our ability to produce pretty much in almost every job, pretty dramatically. But this is a message for leaders and a question for leaders. Like, are leaders still measuring a person's capacity and ability and success based on anything prior than what's going on today, like coming up with a new rule of success versus what they did last year, or what they should have been doing last year. Because the game has completely changed, but I think largely we're still measuring the same way.
Yeah, and especially in the nonprofit sector where, again, burnout is a constant conversation. I think it kind of goes back to that just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So if you can increase output 10x, that means that the leadership can hold success and expectations at 10x, right?
Right.
But if AI has an opportunity to decrease burnout, but then they're just throwing more on it, you're just going to keep that level of burnout, right? So maybe it's expect the same, put more quality into it, and then people have a better life-work balance.
No, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I think it's, well, utopian and probably irresponsible from a donor dollars perspective. So for nonprofits particularly, like you exist based on donors' trust that you're going to use those dollars in the most efficient and capable way possible, right? That means using the internet for things that you would have done otherwise, sending
a library,
whatever.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying in that whole thing. And you and I actually were doing, I don't know if you remember this, you and I were doing an AI readiness assessment for a hospital a year ago or so. And I remember we were just like talking to these people, and someone said, well, with AI, we did this training with them. And the person was like, well, am I just going to be expected to do more? And it's like, well, no, that's not the point. Like, yes, probably. But even by doing more, theoretically, you should still have more life balance. But you're not going to be able to just do 30% of what you used to do, or do your entire job in 30% of your time and then screw around for 70% of your time.
Right. Yes, that would be irresponsible. Yeah. But I think when I was doing work, right, and like heavy and in those Zoom meetings and like just jumping from thing to thing, there was a continually long list of things that was growing that I never was able to get to, right? Which then just led to burnout.
Total burnout.
So you can do more, and then you could do the things that you want to do, right? That often get pushed off. But I don't think that's just increased expectation.
It's not an infinite limit, right? So to your point, like you can't expect that a person now using AI can do infinite amount of work. But I would argue that there's not a clear understanding of what the appropriate amount of work is. So Toby, again, my son, being a coder using Cursor, I mean, it's probably 10, 20, 30x what he could have done prior, like the founder of Midjourney. Like over the break, like you could code all types of apps and things that would have taken you a year to do. And you can do in your pajamas over Christmas break and be like, oh, I'm interested in this one thing. So I don't know what the answer is on that. I wrote an article called The New Math of Success the other day, and it didn't really address like how we measure productivity. But I think that's where that article led me to thinking about this a bit more. It's like the new math of success is essentially that intelligence is now a commodity. Intelligence is no longer what will get you ahead. So being smart is not the thing that is going to be the single biggest opportunity for you anymore. And that sucks for the smart people, but for the kind of moderately smart people that are curious and adaptable and passionate, this is their day. And part of the article was basically saying that we work in a sector, a nonprofit sector of people that have like this unbridled passion. So that commitment is there. They're used to working in very resource constrained environments. So they're creative from that perspective. So if they can get this commodity of intelligence, they can access this democratized intelligence that's accessible to everybody, and then be curious about how to apply their passion and the creativity to it, they can do so much. So I think this is like a really great opportunity for the nonprofit sector to almost reimagine what is possible.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about that too, kind of put it on LinkedIn about like a path versus a plan, right? Like many organizations, or even me as an individual, like my life has ended up in a place that I didn't necessarily plan for, but the path that I've been on has been, I'm very fortunate to be where I am. I'm very grateful for it. But like, that's why 2026 is trying to be more intentional so that I can have more direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think with this AI, it's been thrown at everybody. Everybody has it. There really is not as much as we would like to see intentional thought about how we're going to apply it as an organization, right? And so people are just kind of like throwing whatever new metrics at the wall and seeing what sticks. Right? I'd love to hear, I mean, once this episode comes out, I'd love to hear from people who are listening, like, how are they treating this? How are they justifying success or quantifying success in the new era?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's something that's just going to continue to evolve and something that we have to be really mindful of. If I think about my 20 years leading nonprofits, it was very routine. Like, so we would do goal setting, whatever, November, December, and we'd be like, okay, next year we'd look at last year and be like, this is what you did. We're going to increase it by 5% or something like that, unless something majorly shifted. But it was always incremental. Like, it was always incremental. That's the way, literally, I would argue from like almost every economic model that's ever been created. It's why economic models are just really bad forecasters, because they're all based on a 3% growth or 2%. Like, they've never been built to identify and take an account for, you know, huge shifts in change, like COVID or like a presidential election or things like that have like shifted things very quickly. So we don't have a basis to understand what success should look like. And I'm just curious how long that will take. It may take forever. Like, part of this is that 3 years ago, we were like, oh, well, we could do 20% more now because we have this new thing called ChatGPT 3.5. And then last year was like, oh, well, what is this thing, like vibe coding thing? Like, maybe we could like this thing could actually like write stuff. And then next year we're like in the year of agents, where it's like, oh my gosh. So like vibe coding and agents are like a 50x multiple. So it may be never do we get to a point where we're like, okay, this is what success looks like. And then at that point, how do we measure success in our organizations?
Yeah, I think it will have to be a true reevaluation every year. It's not that incremental change, but what worked for you the year before is not going to work for you in the coming year.
Yeah.
I similarly, like with that, everything is accessible. Every skill set, every application, every opportunity for success is accessible. For me, it's been giving me a lot of FOMO, right? Like fear of missing out, which I don't think I've felt as strong as I have recently until like except like the earlier days of ChatGPT, right? When everybody's talking about it, there's all this hype. And now with vibe coding and agents, like, yes, I know them. Yes, I'm familiar with them. Am I making $200,000 a month because I built an incredible app? No. Are there hundreds, if not thousands of people that are doing that because they have? Yes. And so it's just me who is like, I'm my own barrier there.
Are there that many people, or is this an area where technology doesn't do us any favors because we think there are?
Right.
But no doubt, I absolutely believe that the super curious 18-year-old living in their parents' basement that is moderately intelligent, but just really curious, has just this amazing opportunity. So I do think, not to dismiss like your FOMO, I mean, I live in a constant state of FOMO because you see these things and you're like, oh my gosh, like, and I think FOMO exists when you see something that you're capable of doing, but don't have the time or the drive or whatever it might be to do it. And probably usually the time to do it because other responsibilities.
And analysis paralysis.
Right. So it's not seeing people do well in areas that you couldn't even fathom. Like, I don't have FOMO over astrophysics or astrophysicists that are developing a new branch of physics that are going to make our cars float. That's super cool. I don't have FOMO over it because like I could never do that.
Yeah.
But you end up with FOMO when you're like, oh my gosh, like everything is possible. Everything's accessible. I can vibe code my way into like almost this dream state where anything I've ever thought could come true to whatever degree of success. And that's the world we live in. To be honest, that maybe we need more FOMO. Our sector, I'd argue, needs more FOMO to imagine what's possible and then actually do the work.
Which means they need time. And to get time, you need to use tools that allow you to be more efficient with your time.
Right. So there's the cycle right there. The circle of the AI life. The circle of the AI life. Use the tools, gain the benefit of time. Well, actually, now we're solving our own math here, because essentially what we're saying is that a person is being asked to do more, or they're able to do more. Actually, they're not even asked to do more yet. Yeah, they maybe should be. I was arguing they should be. If not, right, you're able to do more and then have the dividend of time. So say you just gain 20% of your time. I think one of my biggest fears is our sector doesn't have enough FOMO, and that we're not imagining big enough. We're not thinking big enough. And we're not like, oh my gosh, like my mission deserves this. Our organization deserves this. If only we could. You take that 20% dividend of time, because no one's asking you to do 120% yet. Apply that to that scale of that mission, and then you're golden. I mean, I think we just solved the entire math of success.
That was easy. It was done in
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
So based on that, what do you think 2026 is going to be? How is it going to be different for nonprofits adopting AI? Do you think it's just going to be the same thing that we've seen in 2025 and 2024? Or there's going to be more of that urgency, more of that build up, and maybe a little bit more time to think and plan and prepare?
Yeah, I think we might have talked about this before, but to me, again, it's a little bit more of like the frog being boiled slowly, where, at a certain point, there's a point where the frog's like, it's too late. And so I don't know that that's in 2026, but, we're still pre-intelligence explosion. So 2027, end of 2027, probably, where like PhD level intelligence in every single subject domain and every language on the planet, that becomes like wildly disruptive. Like every single job that it is behind a screen 75% of the time is subject to the intelligence explosion. So if you spend 75% of your time behind a screen and you're not dealing with human to human interaction as like a primary way of your job, then I think you're going to be expected to do a lot more and be able to be capable of doing a lot more eventually. I think in 2026, while the private sector is focused on agents still, I mean, last year, lots of exploration agents and agents are still not showing great signs of adaptability when like variables change and things like that, and they require almost as much management as a human. But the private sector will go big into agents in 2026 and be able to work out a lot of those bugs. And most of it is providing context to agents to know what to do in like unexpected circumstances. That we happen to, have a pretty good crystal ball. Is like, we know where the nonprofit sector is going to be. Is all you have to do is watch the private sector and wait 3 years. So it may not be this thing the nonprofit sector is like going to wrestle with the most, but I think it will feel like the frog boiling by the end of 2026, where it's like the world is still moving faster than even the people running these systems anticipated. I mean, that's been the big wake up call for the last few weeks, is that a lot of the big tech companies are like, whoa, like they're reflecting and realizing that things are moving faster than they even thought. And that nonprofit sector, that digital divide that we've always had, becomes a digital chasm pretty clearly by the end of 2026 for those that don't really seize the moment.
Yeah, I thought it was, I think Sam Altman put out something in the past couple of weeks I shared with you, of the barrier to true AGI is just as much technical capability, like compute, as it is teaching people how to use current AI efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, really adoption, right? Yeah, you sent that to me. I think that's so true, right? Because I mean, you can have AGI, but what is it? Only 5% of people pay for ChatGPT. So if people are just using it as a search engine and just getting a little bit of information faster versus rethinking what's possible, then what help is AGI? And this goes along, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Like, I think the biggest limitation to what's possible is our own imagination, because we're still thinking in very like linear, very, I don't know what the right word is, like incremental ways. And we're curious about why it's so hard for people to imagine a future that looks different than today. And that's something that I think that becomes like when AGI hits and people are still thinking about what's possible in terms of what's possible today, then that becomes the biggest limitation. That technically it will already be there.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see it all play out. Again, like I think agents are in like the GPT 3.5 version.
Yeah.
Right? Or
that's
like
a good analogy.
You can work with it. You can see the potential, but it's not doing all the hype, right? It's not, the reality and the hype are very far apart.
Well, they're still not that accessible. And so when we have agent marketplaces where you're like, oh, I need the agent for that, an agent for that, and they're like highly intuitive and also transparent so that you can not keep a human in the loop, but on the loop with agents. So I think that's where it also requires a different set of governance, because they can achieve many more complex tasks with autonomously that you need a human that's on top of it, not just in it at incremental checks. So I don't know. So looking at the past, looking at the future, I think if you're a nonprofit leader, I think you should start having conversations about what expectations should be, not just what they have been. Because if those expectations look very similar to the same expectations from a year ago and 2 and 3 years ago, you probably should think a bit bigger than that. Because I believe that, well, the passion, that unbridled passion, our missions deserve this. Humanity deserves it. We have tools that are almost just tailor built for resource constrained organizations to do things that would never be before possible because you don't have the resources to do. And now we have them. It's like, think of what's possible, create that space of curiosity for your organization. And then essentially it's about incentives. It's about holding people accountable to achieving those things.
Yeah. And do that as a group exercise, right? It doesn't all have to fall on your shoulders, figure out the vision for your organization. Like, get everybody involved, run it by peers. Like, this is a collaborative effort. We're all in this together. And that's one of the beautiful things about the nonprofit sector that the for-profit doesn't have. Like, this is a community that we can all leverage from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that you and I have seen work a lot, we've been around the space for quite a while and we've seen lots of orgs succeed and a lot fail, but those that create kind of like multidisciplinary working group or task force or whatever you want to call it, that's not an IT function, but becomes representative of like different people and their jobs. So maybe a size of an organization that's 50 people, maybe it's like 5 people that are focused on AI acceleration, and they represent different areas within the organization, whether it's program development or program evaluation or grant making or grant giving. And you start sharing success and failures among those kind of cross-departmentally. That ends up being, I think, what is considered the best practice in terms of like really incentivizing AI acceleration within an organization. And then I think that next layer is what we're talking about here, which is then how do you hold people accountable? Because one thing to have ideas, the other is about execution.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it is, I mean, we are on a path where there are going to be roles that get replaced. You don't want someone to just kind of be kicking up their feet and collecting a paycheck and offloading all the work to AI when they should be staying in or on the loop.
Yeah. All right. So your prediction for 2026, bubble or no bubble?
I think something's going to happen. I mean, the hype around Gen AI is just insane, right? Like the numbers, I mean, what, Meta paid $11 million, or was it in the billions for that? Yeah, for that data scientist. Like, 28-year-old dude. These numbers are just irrational. And Gen AI is not there yet. This is where, like, I have fears of predictive AI getting thrown in like the baby with the bathwater, right? Because the value of predictive AI is there, right? Like, it's proven. That's what the large companies in the world are using. But Gen AI, I mean, there's that MIT study out that only 5% are seeing success. So I think we're hitting that trough of disillusionment on the Gartner hype cycle.
Although it's trough of disillusionment. The economic bubble is based on greed, not on technical capability. My biggest concern is that nonprofits were like, oh, look, there's a bubble. I'm not going to use AI anymore. But still, the 5% of organizations in the MIT study that are succeeding and showing lots of ROI on AI had nothing to do with the technical capability.
Right.
It had to do with their ability to incorporate AI at the core of the strategy. Not as a tool that they added on afterward, but something that was fundamental to their success. So just to be clear, like the bubble will be based on people's expectations that this is a silver bullet and can do all the things. And I built a .com during the .com bubble, and it was the exact same thing. People just had these like wild expectations that it was going to do all the things. And people have to adopt those things. The people have to change. And technically the models are there. Like, I mean, we're there to like make the difference, and that's proven. It's just whether or not people accept it and actually change the way they think about work.
Yeah. I think that we've seen this for early days of selling what we were selling. People thought that just buying it meant that it was going to change their organization, right? They were going to see success immediately. And I think that thought is still there, that it's just, I buy it, I'm good, I move on.
Yeah. All right. Well, more to come. Clearly, we've got a whole year to talk through this and see how right or wrong we were on any of this. But if this struck a chord in how you're thinking about performance, how you're thinking about success, we'd love to hear from you. Engage with us. Let us know what's on your mind. If you want to be on the podcast at some point, you got something interesting to share, let us know. And we'll see you soon. So Scott, great to start 2026 with you. I'm going to see you in New York in a couple of weeks. We'll record a live podcast there. And then we're back off to the races, and we'll see this whole thing unfold.
Yeah, back on the road. Good seeing you. Thanks for
All right,
joining.
you too. All right, thanks everyone.